Right now, Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
Thanks a lot, Jess, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. I'm Rich Walsh. I'll be joined by Chris Mueller in a matter of moments, and you can give us a call at 412-575-2600 on our hotline tonight to get on the air live. So give us a call. And now, Chris over at the 93.7 The Fan Cam. Chris, you know, devastating news, I think, for the Penguins. They're winning here tonight, crucial 2 points. But the fact that they lost Jake Guentzel for 4 weeks, I mean, this is really going to cloud the trade deadline and what the Penguins are going to do. I think, I mean, that was their one guy they could get something for. And now, I mean, I know Frank Saravelli said that potentially it's not going to impact the trade, but I don't see how it can't.
Well, if it's an injury that a team knows he'll be legitimately recovered from right at or just after the trade deadline, I don't think it would necessarily hinder a team's willingness to trade for him. What it might do is drive the price down because teams can say, hey, we're not trading, you know, first-round pick for damaged goods. This is one of those signs from the universe. I think the Penguins need to somehow try to ride out this situation, try to win as many games as they can, hope that they can stay afloat, maybe even make up a little ground, maybe get some solid team efforts. We've seen this team have addition by subtraction moments before, but usually it's when they end up playing better defense when a star is out. And right now they're playing good enough defense as is. They just need more goal scoring. So maybe I'm kind of engaging in wishful thinking here, but I'll go back to what I said to you, I think, last week. I want them now that this is the injury, try to survive this stretch, try to claw back into the race, and then try to make a push once he's back and healthy. I'm sorry. I don't see the utility of trying to trade him anyway and trying to do this half-hearted attempt at a rebuild on the fly. Just go all in as much as you are capable of going all in on this year. While Sidney Crosby's still playing at the level he's playing, he scores in the first 20 seconds tonight. And then figure out next year this offseason. I think there are too many people that feel like trading Jake Guentzel now somehow solves all of the Penguins' longer-term problems. I just don't think people should be concerning themselves with those until we actually get to that point.
Yeah, but the problem is, I mean, if you don't trade him now, you could actually lose him if you can't sign him at the end of the year, too. And is he a chip to maybe trade in the offseason? You got to make a move to get better. And what are you going to do? He's the only guy, right? I mean, how many guys can you get anything for?
Are you saying a chip to trade him if you then have to sign him this year and then he's under contract and then trade him? Well, he's going to have a no movement clause. So I guess what I'm saying here, Richie, in so many words is I don't really care if they just ride this out with him, they lose in the first round of the playoffs or something, and then he walks for nothing. You at least clear $6 million in cap space off the books, and you're not going to bring in a Jake Guentzel quality player for that price because he's underpaid. But my whole point here is when it gets really bad for this franchise, when this whole core era fully breaks down, which it hasn't quite done yet, it's going to be so ugly that the return in a Jake Guentzel trade isn't going to float you through it or help you survive it.
Well, I get that in the long term, but a first-round draft pick and maybe a couple younger guys could help get you through it until maybe you rebuild or you're so bad that you get the first overall pick and get another generational player. That's what the Penguins need. I mean, unlike the Steelers haven't had that yet where they were so bad, where they were in the top 5 and was able to draft like a really impact player. The Penguins are nearing that, I would think, in a few years.
I mean, I think the Penguins have maybe this year, next year, and I don't really even feel confident saying anything beyond that left, where they are a really competitive high-end hockey club. And then I just think it could get very bad here very quickly. And I do think in the Penguins front office, there is an awareness and an understanding of something that they don't ever want to admit, which is this has been a star-crossed franchise since Lemieux got here in '84. Fans have had very little in the way of lean years where there wasn't anything to cheer for. And when those lean years did arrive in the early 2000s, no one went to the games. And so I think that there is a deep-seated fear there that if this team ever really plummets to the bottom and has to do a hard reset like a lot of other teams do, even championship caliber ones, that it's going to be very tough to get fans in that building for a couple of years. And financially speaking, I don't think the Penguins want to confront that reality.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it, because I remember that they prepared for, I think they counted in their budget one round of playoffs at least, sometimes 2 years, two rounds that is. But this year, I can't see them jumping above all these teams and making the postseason this year. They're 11 points back. They're going to get 2 today. Then they'll have 3 games in hand on the Flyers. I don't think you're catching the Flyers or any of those teams in the division, but you also got to jump like 3 other teams to get in a wild card spot, which are 7 points back.
Well, I think the Red Wings, are the team occupying that last spot right now. They need to go on a run, plain and simple. They've got 10 games after this one before the trade deadline. You need to go something like 8-2 in those 10 games. You need to get like 16 of those possible 20 points. Because plain and simple, it's hard to make up ground in the NHL when every game is a 3-point game and you can often win a game but only pick up 1. It's something I don't like particularly about the league. I think it makes it very tough to mount late season surges or charges for the playoffs. But nonetheless, that's the reality they face. And if they don't rip off a pretty big winning streak or a pretty long run of excellent play, they're in big trouble.
Yeah, the loser point really is coming into play here down the stretch for the Penguins. All right, we're going to take a break. Coming back with your phone calls, 412-575-2600. Back in a couple minutes. All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our GMC Tweet of the Night. And Chris, I always like to play 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. You know, I think we've all played that, trying to get back to each actor with Kevin Bacon. Well, here's 5 degrees of separation for day 1 of the NHL from Jaromir Jagr. And you can see how Jagr somehow gets all the way back to Jerry Duran, goes to Gordie Roberts, Gordie Howe, Bill Gadsby, Mo Roberts, and then Jerry Durant, which you can see there, 1917, December 19th, the first day in NHL history. But if you think about this, Chris, not only Jaromir Jagr you could trace back, but Mario Lemieux, Phil Bourque, and everyone that played on that Penguins 92 team pretty much, right?
Boy, Gordie Howe doing a lot of work in the middle of that graphic, is he not? I mean, Gordie Howe, you can play 6 degrees of separation with any NHL player if you just stick Gordie Howe in there, playing for like, 5 different decades. Yeah. He played NHL games. He's like the skeleton key for 5 degrees or 6 degrees of who's who in the NHL.
And you know what? It helps that Jaromir Jagr played for like 30 teams too. So
it's going to be awkward, Richie. It's going to be awkward now that you've got me thinking about this on Sunday when they're putting his jersey in the rafters, because he's going to be one of the 12 best forwards for the Penguins in the arena that day. They're going to be tempted to ask him to suit up and play. Because at 52 years old, there's a decent chance he would be better than whatever they're throwing on the 4th line these days.
Yeah, there's no question about that. His birthday is today, so happy birthday to Jaromir Jagr. Sunday should be fun. They're going against the Kings, one of the teams that Jagr didn't play for. You know what I did find interesting today? I'm switching over to the Penguins. I'm switching over to the Steelers now because the Penguins are playing. So any Penguins fan is probably watching the game right now. NFL.com did their rankings. I'm sure you saw it, of all the quarterbacks that started a game this year, I think 66. The highest rated Steelers quarterback, Mason Rudolph, comes in at 28th. Kenny Pickett, 35th. And Mitch Trubisky, who was just recently released, at 47th. I don't really have a problem with it. I think it's the right order for the Steelers quarterbacks. Mason Rudolph could have been a tad higher, and I think Kenny Pickett could be a tad lower. But I think they hit it pretty right. And the quarterbacks that everyone's talking about trading for, Justin Fields is 20th. And then if Russell Wilson gets cut, he's 21st.
Well, they could have put Trubisky lower, let's be real. I mean, they could have put Mitch right in the low 60s there, and they'd have had him right where he belonged. Yeah, Kenny wasn't one of the 32 best quarterbacks in the league this year. That's not breaking news. The small sampling of what Mason Rudolph showed, he was one of the 32 best guys to actually suit up and play. I do think, though, that you're betting on sort of hope and continued improvement with this idea of trading specifically for Fields. I mean, in Wilson's case, it's a different story. I think Wilson, you are trading for a guy who, if an NFL career is a round of golf, he's on probably about, the 16th hole, Richie?
Yeah.
And he's at Sawgrass, so it's going to be a big challenge for him, let's say. In Fields' case, I think this is well-trodden ground now. He's younger than Kenny Pickett. He had a better statistical season than Kenny Pickett last year. He does give you just ridiculous running ability, particularly in the open field. And I do think that in a very basic sense, his skill set is much more tailored to be dynamic and great within Arthur Smith's offense. He would be, I think, leaps and bounds ahead of anybody else Arthur Smith has had in terms of mobility. The 1 year he had Mariota in Atlanta, they were the 4th best rushing attack in the league by yards per carry. Obviously, the Tannehill Titans were great on the ground because of Henry, and Tannehill could move a little bit. You put Fields in this offense, you get those 2 running backs the ball a fair amount of the time, you try to hit some big plays. I could understand how people would look at that essential formula and see how it would work, or squint and say, yeah, that's pretty good. You really just do not get that if you keep it with Kenny Pickett here and he doesn't have competition. He just, no offense to him, he's just not a good enough athlete and not in the realm of Justin Fields athletically, or even close to in the realm, to make that kind of thing happen in Arthur Smith's offense.
So I don't think that the Steelers use a 1st or 2nd round draft pick on a quarterback. I don't even know if they would trade a 2nd round draft pick. So what do you think they could get Fields for? Does a 3rd round draft pick and maybe a later one get it done?
People keep throwing around like 2nd and a 5th next year, which is more worth like a 6th in reality, because a year later's draft picks are always worth a little less inherently. I haven't seen anybody throw around 3rd in a while. But as you well know, Richie, it's all about who wants you and how many teams want you. And if nobody's making serious offers or overtures to the Chicago Bears for Justin Fields, and they are fully committed to getting him off the roster, which I think they are, then you maybe can start talking about a 3rd round pick. But truth be told, I would be surprised if he goes for anything worse than a 2nd.
We're both in agreement, though. He's the best option. I would much rather have Fields than Russell Wilson or Ryan Tannehill or anyone like that. And
well,
here's
somebody described it.
Go ahead.
Somebody described it well to me on Twitter when we talked about this earlier in the week on the show. I got a tweet from a buddy of mine. He just said, listen, I don't think Fields is basically any sort of sure thing or even a likely thing, but he said, as a Steelers fan, I imagine Justin Fields on this team, and I think to myself, if he hits his full potential, say there's a 5% chance you could win a Super Bowl with him because his athletic gifts are that great. And he said, I wanted Kenny to succeed, but there's a 0% chance with Kenny Pickett because he's shown absolutely nothing to suggest he could swing with the big boys. That's kind of how I feel. I don't think Justin Fields is like some can't-miss thing. It's more like a little bit more enticing of a lottery ticket than Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, and I think Fields is the outlier out of all those quarterbacks that we just talked about. If they would trade for him and bring him in, I think he's QB1 right at the start.
Well, he's you're going to have to pick up his 5th-year option. You're going to have to agree to do that if you trade for him. He automatically is QB1. It would be a farce to bring him in with like a 2nd-round pick that you used to get him, to pay him $25 million or $22 million or whatever that 5th-year option is going to be, and then to say, oh, by the way, we're having a very legitimate competition for this spot. I do think, Richie, in the end, this got super heated earlier in the week as far as national insiders connecting dots and connecting Tomlin to Fields. The longer I think about it, the more I hear about it, the more I start to get the sense that the Steelers are just going to roll the ball back out to Kenny Pickett. Maybe Mason Rudolph will be back. I would still doubt that. It might be like a Ryan Tannehill. It's going to be Pickett's show, and they're going to live or die with it this year.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Mason Rudolph. I thought for sure that he'd be back, and this is the best option for him. But I kind of agree with how you said it earlier a month ago when we talked about it being a fractured locker room if you bring him back, because half the guys in there would probably want Mason Rudolph as the quarterback. So that'll be a tough situation, I think. I don't know if the Steelers want to put themselves in that. So. Yeah, Ryan Tannehill or someone like that might be their best option. All right, let's go out to Bill in Bethel Park. How you doing, Bill?
Thanks. How you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for calling.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Hey, real quick, I think Justin Fields would be a great addition to the Steelers organization. I think we could groom him into an elite quarterback. But just getting back to the Penguins with the Jake Getzel trade, I don't think the Penguins are interested in trading him. Or I think they've become complacent like the Pirates. All they are interested in is putting people into the seats, and I don't think Getzel's going to.
All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. Chris, that'll get old. It's already getting old with Penguins fans. I understand that they're watching one of the greatest players that ever played the game with Sidney Crosby, but you got to win, too.
I mean, the place was emptying out in a big hurry yesterday. I think they know that their fan base is suffering from a little bit of Atlanta Braves syndrome from the 90s, where that place couldn't even sell out for a playoff game. I think now there's a fatigue factor setting in. Since that second cup of the back-to-back run, you have one more good run where you lose to the eventual cup champs the following year. And then it's been various playoff humiliations and not a single playoff series won. And now we're 5 years into this, or 6 years. It'll be 6 years if that doesn't happen this year. 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, whatever. 5 years, I guess. My math's off, Richie. And I think people are rightly fed up and wondering, well, wait a minute, like, what are we doing here? This is the Penguins. Sidney Crosby's still playing at a high level. Why aren't there more results? Why aren't the deals you're trying to make working? And it's a head scratcher for a lot of people, and I think it's going to turn a lot of people away if it keeps up.
Yeah, Sullivan said they made changes that we don't see. But obviously we don't see them because they're not really helping.
Because they're not working.
It's not working. Yeah.
You don't see them because they're not working. If they were making changes that worked, we could all point to them and say, hey, wow, look at that change. They won the game, but they've lost 3 in a row until tonight.
All right, we got to take a break. Back in a couple minutes. Stay right there.